a question I've posed time and time again here in Greater Boston. How old is too old to be behind the wheel? And last night in Quincy, we may have gotten an answer, at least for one driver, 81. That's the age of the man who drove this car into a pump at this Franklin Street gas station during rush hour yesterday. 6 people, including the driver and 2 police officers, were sent to the hospital with minor injuries after they were sprayed with the station's fire suppression chemicals, which were triggered by the accident. Or maybe it's a few years younger, because the woman who drove her SUV into this bakery in Mansfield last week is 79. The bakery was forced to close indefinitely for repairs, but thankfully no one was hurt there. There are more than 3,000 people with driver's licenses over the age of 96, that's right, 96, in Massachusetts. And not one of those nonagenarians have had to take a road test since their first, as much as 80 years before. So is it time we start mandating road tests for older drivers, or are things fine as they are? Joining me are Elizabeth Dugan. She's an associate professor of gerontology at UMass Boston and a member of the Governor's Council on Aging. It's good to see you, Beth. Thanks for being here. Evan Falchuk is a former third-party candidate for governor. He's now chair and CEO of the Village Plan, which helps match families with elder care services. Evan, it's good to see you, too. So, as I said before, Beth, you take a road test at 16, 17, 18, whatever, and in Massachusetts, at least, you never have to take a road test again, except under very limited circumstances. Is the current state of the law adequate for public safety?
Yes.
Why?
Well, there's only one state in the country that requires road tests, Illinois at 75. So the state of the science is not to have some type of testing. Why would you expect driving skills to decay?
Because we know that 20% of people 85 years and older have dementia. We know that the cognitive skills decline after 65 years old. We know that there are more fatal crashes per mile when you're over 65. So, I mean, I know that that would make us an outlier, along with what you said, Illinois. But on the merits, is it a bad idea, or is it a bad idea solely because nobody else is doing it?
No, the science shows no benefit to road testing, or we're not there in terms of having an accurate screening test to use.
Were you in there, Evan?
Well, we have a bigger problem, which is that we've done a terrible job in this country planning for the fact that we've got an aging population. And so if you were to go and start taking driver's licenses away from folks that were over 75, how are they supposed to get to where they need to go?
Well, wait a second, taking driving licenses away from those over 75 if they can't pass a road test?
Yeah.
If they can, which I assume the vast majority can, they'll continue to drive.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people having a road test. You already have to go back with 5 years to get your license renewed in person, which I don't know
with a vision test only.
Yeah, I don't know that's a really great screen. I think it'd be useful to have folks over 75 go and have an additional road test. But we do have to deal with a larger issue, which is that for the folks who cannot drive, and there are some for sure. I mean, clearly the gentleman that drove his car into those tanks probably shouldn't have been driving. How are older people supposed to get around, go to the store, have a social life, to live, and they deserve that.
I have to say, the independence issue, when we've taken phone calls on the radio, is always the biggest issue, no matter where people are, pro-road test, anti-road test. The issue is independence. If it turns out, Beth, that there was our state or the private sector did fill that hole so that people in their later years who can't drive competently or didn't want to drive but only did it because they wanted to maintain independence, if there were alternative forms of transportation that were either affordable or free, would your position remain the same?
I'm based on the science. So as soon as we have evidence that something works, I say go for it.
Well, but
it's important to think about.
Works, but wait a second, but I just proved that something doesn't work when 1 out of 5 people who I'm on the road with, 1 out of 5 on the road, over 85 have dementia. Then by definition, it's not working.
Well, you can look at healthyagingdatareports.org for information about the state rate for Alzheimer's disease and related disorders in Massachusetts. I don't think it's 20%.
17%. I just looked it up this afternoon. 17%. So let's say it's 15%, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is.
If 1 out of 6
but we don't know that they're driving. We don't know.
Should they be barred? Should they be barred from driving? If someone has been diagnosed with dementia, should they be barred from driving a car?
Depends on their function. You have someone who has a very large cognitive reserve and are early in the disease. Some neurologic studies out of the St. Louis University show that people can drive safely after a diagnosis for about 3 years.
Who would decide if they can't drive safely?
They are monitored
by whom?
In that study by the neurologists.
You know, that's an interesting question to the doctor. I want to return to independence and your thoughts on it in a second. Many people suggest that the arbiter on these issues should be the doctor. And my response to that, if I was of a certain age and cared about my independence as much as I think all three of us agree older people do, I wouldn't go to the doctor if I thought that my doctor might diagnose me as having a condition that caused me to be unable to drive. So in many ways, I might even get sicker, and the whole situation might be worse.
I think that's right, and I also think that this is an issue that is really best handled by families. The adult children, for example, are going to be the ones who know as well as anybody whether mom or dad should be driving. And it's really hard to have that conversation.
Impossible.
Really hard. And so you need to get help with that. But again, this is where the government can play a really important role, be to educate people on having those conversations.
What about the independent? You're a fairly creative guy. I've known you for a while.
Thank you.
So that's the one thing all three of us agree upon. How do you maintain independence? What's the alternative transportation vehicle? I don't mean that as a pun.
Well, this
for
goes,
people who shouldn't be or can't be driving.
This goes to the larger issue we have of how we set up our society to deal with an aging population. We've known since the end of World War II that we were going to have baby boomers aging to where they are now, and we haven't done enough. So if there were more walkable communities with housing that was designed for people of all ages to live in, with commercial districts nearby, restaurants, stores, other social activities, that would be wonderful, and we can do that. We just need leadership that says we need to tackle this issue. And it isn't an issue as simple as this person should drive, this person shouldn't. It's how is our society set up.
Well, but when you say it's not as simple, I agree it's not as simple.
Yeah.
But you do agree, I mean, that there are certain people, as we discussed, who should not be on the road.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's scary. Now, there's a lot of people that are 17 that shouldn't be on the road, too. But I think that we can address each of these issues independently and thoughtfully, and that's what we're talking about.
So one last thing on this, putting aside just for a second the science, are you okay with the notion, as I said before, that you can't, I do know people personally who are in their 90s who are driving, by the way, some of whom are wildly competent. Are you okay with the notion that you can go 70, 80 years without having a second road test? You get it at 16, you're 96, you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay. Is tech, very quickly, only 30 seconds, is technology a possible solution to this problem? You're nodding in agreement.
Absolutely. Driverless car, be great. Be great. I mean, it's sort of, if there were more Ubers available for older people to get around, but
and made them affordable.
And made them affordable, it'd be wonderful.
That would end this debate, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We have to have options. It's not just driving, but getting around.
On that, we are in total agreement. Evan, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Beth, you as well. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.